Hello, my name is Alan Keele. I'm a professor of German literature here at Brigham Young University. I'm pleased to be able to talk to you briefly today about this film because this is a kind of bonus. Here you have an opera by undoubtedly the world's greatest composer, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, made into a film by arguably one of the finest filmmakers in the world, Ingmar Bergman. And so you're going to get a work of art squared, a work of art times two. As we see this young woman, we're reminded that Bergman is not about to just put a camera in the back of an opera house and make a film of an opera. He's going to make a real film. And so he doesn't waste any moments. During the overtures, of which there are two, he takes us into the audience, and he connects us to this opera by looking at the face of this beautiful young girl. Rumor has it that that's actually his daughter. I've never seen that confirmed, but many people have asserted it. She's looking intently at the screen, and we're looking intently at her, and we begin to bond with her as a human being. And then as the music begins to change to a more rhythmic, dance-like tune, we begin to see the faces of many, many other people in the audience, and remarkably different ethnic groups and ages, but they're all looking in the same direction very intently, as the young girl was as well. They're looking at Mozart, and they're inviting us to look at Mozart, but they're also serving as a kind of reminder to us that this is the Teatro Mundi, this is the theater of the world. We're looking at humanity, and this opera is speaking to humanity about some of the greatest themes and most important aspects of our lives as humans on this earth. There's a line in the opera that says, "A man and a wife and a man combine together to reach up to and attain godhood." And there are lines to the effect that when the earth will be renewed and achieve its paradisiacal glory, then the earth will be a heavenly kingdom and mortals will be as the gods. This is not a trivial work of art. This is a work of art that's going to tell us really the great questions. One of the earliest scenes in the opera occurs after young Tamino has been chased by a dragon. 3 women have killed the dragon, and then they've gone off to bring the queen back to sing to him about the fate of her daughter. And this is the queen of the night. She's now singing to Tamino, the hero of the opera, about how her daughter was kidnapped and how she was helpless to save her daughter. And she then says, "You will go save her." Now, this is a very important scene because at the beginning of the opera, one thinks that she is telling the truth and that she is the good guy, so to speak. But as the opera progresses, it emerges that she's really trying to deceive Tamino. Bergman uses the techniques of the cinema to convince us of this. Now watch how she looks over at him. Is this having an effect on you? That glance to her left is a brilliant cinematic technique that could not be done on the stage because you couldn't see her eyes that clearly on the stage. But in that glance, we are told that she is giving Tamino a deception. But she says to him, "You will go rescue my daughter, and then after you have rescued her, she will belong to you." At first, since this is a kind of a fairy tale, we think, well, isn't this nice? It fits the pattern of a fairy tale. And he's going to go rescue the princess, and then he's going to marry the princess. But it turns out that this is all a deception on her part, and this is a very wicked woman. And it will become Tamino's task, and it will become the task of each of us in the opera, to begin to examine these truth claims and to decide whether or not this is, in fact, the truth. It turns out that she is a sworn enemy of the gentle priests of the temple, who have, for her own protection, taken Pamina, her daughter, into the temple to get her out of the evil influences of her mother. Now, here we see in a little locket Pamina, and we see that she's being kept by a rather evil-looking guy named Monastatos, which causes Prince Tamino to have a troubled look on his face. The real meaning of this opera is contained in this problem with who is telling the truth. And as the opera progresses, you'll see that Tamino becomes convinced that the priests, in fact, have the truth, and that he must follow their admonitions and not follow the admonitions of the wicked queen of the night. That's a very important epistemological argument, who is telling the truth. Let's jump to another scene. Bergman wastes no time. During the intermission, he shows us the scene backstage, and as the priests mill about, waiting to start the second act, the camera soon cuts to the other actors who have performed the first act. The great high priest Sarastro is studying a score of Wagner's Parsifal, which is an opera that is somewhat equally important in the history of religion and is a kind of high point. The queen is seen smoking a cigarette under a sign that says in at least 3 languages, smoking strictly forbidden. So we get a sense that this wicked queen of the night, here's another glimpse into her personality, although it's between the scenes. Here's a beautiful tableau of Tamino and Pamina. Pamina has just checkmated him lovingly, and the little slave boy is reading Donald Duck. It's a brilliant little scene, very touching, but it pushes the story forward by giving us a little more insight into the character of these actors who are still in character while during the intermission. In this tableau, which is very reminiscent of the Last Supper of Michelangelo, the high priests are seen asking that the 2 initiates into the temple, Tamino and his sidekick Papageno, the birdman, be taken into the temple and be tested for their worthiness. And the guide takes Tamino into the temple, tells him he must be silent. And then his guide brings Papageno and asks him if he would like to also obtain wisdom. Papageno is a natural man. And he says, me? No thanks, I don't want any wisdom. Sounds like too much trouble. And the priest says, well, what if the gods had reserved a beautiful girl for you? And he says, well, now wait a minute. Well, wait a minute, it must involve some heavy lifting, so I'm not going to be interested in this. What if Sarastro had reserved a girl for you who looks just like you in coloring and dress? Papageno is a bit of an egotist, and he thinks if she looks just like him, maybe he'd like her. Let's see, what's her name? The priest can't remember. He looks on a piece of paper. He's far-sighted. Papagena, even her name is an exact duplicate of his. This narcissist is really very interested in someone who's his own image. And he explains the conditions of the silence. Of course I can be silent. Come in here. Now watch this. This is the funniest part of the whole movie. The people he sends me.